discuss? The Neighborhood Council held 2 community forums to get community input on the high-low food sites. The first one was on February 8th. 48 people spoke at that, in addition to Jeffrey Sanchez, Councilor Matt O'Malley, Councilor Felix Royal, and Councilor Ayanna Presley. The comments at that first forum addressed the following themes: loss of Latino foods, culture diversity, concerns about gentrification and displacement of low-income residents, concern for high-low employees, stopping Whole Foods from coming to JP, the need to support our locally owned small businesses, and then making demands on Whole Foods through a community benefits agreement. We then held another community-wide forum on Monday, February 28th. 40 people spoke at that. 26 people spoke out against Whole Foods coming to JP. Their comments addressed the following concerns: gentrification, displacement of low-income residents, loss of diversity, supporting locally owned small businesses, the fact that Whole Foods is not affordable, and Whole Foods business practices. 10 people spoke in favor of Whole Foods coming to JP, addressing the following concerns: not having another vacant store in the Hyde Square area, improving the business district of Hyde Square, providing jobs and good food, and the convenience of being able to shop in the neighborhood. 4 people were either neutral or spoke to other issues.
Over the last several weeks, we've heard an array of voices on the issue of Whole Foods moving into Jamaica Plain. Among those that have spoken out in opposition to the move, there's been one defining thread. Having a Whole Foods at 415 Center Street will cause both residential and business rents to rise in the surrounding areas, causing the eventual displacement of many people and businesses that make this community strong and vibrant. Whole Foods is not the beginning of gentrification in Jamaica Plain, but with its size and with its scope, it could very well result in the final homogenization of this community. This convinces me that no matter how I feel about the corporation in general, Whole Foods is not a good fit for Hyde Square. I've also listened to the voices of people who are excited at the prospect of Whole Foods and heard a lot of valid arguments. However, I decided that the positive aspects of having a Whole Foods in Hyde Square outweighed by the negative impact that it will have on our community. Many people are concerned about the risk of having an empty space in the neighborhood. I share that concern. No one wants to see bare storefronts in tough economic times. However, I am convinced that 415 Center Street is an attractive retail space which will likely generate a great deal of interest in the absence of Whole Foods. And I also believe that if Whole Foods should decide not to come, those organized against it could successfully use their organizing power to pressure NAF and find a better alternative for the space, because it will give license to private landlords in the surrounding shops to continue charging rents that are too high for locally owned businesses to locate in those spaces. In my mind, in the long run, it's not whether a space is filled, but how it is filled that marks the health of the neighborhood. I've heard many of my neighbors argue that they shop at Whole Foods and that having one in the neighborhood would permit them to shop for their groceries in Jamaica Plain, rather than having to go to Whole Foods locations in other neighborhoods. I believe that we should sacrifice that convenience in order to preserve the racial and economic diversity that make our community strong.
Second, there's no question that the position that came out of those meetings, and they were overwhelmingly in opposition.
I have been struggling with this for a while, ever since we started. There's great economic opportunity for Whole Foods moving in the neighborhood, no doubt about it. But take Whole Foods away. Take any city involvement away. Take the Knapp family away. Take the diversity away. At the bottom of this, there is a neighborhood who does not want Whole Foods in their neighborhood. And this neighborhood council has historically taken the neighborhood side. I think we should be struggling to say no to them because they haven't done anything for me to say yes. They've done the direct opposite. They've had backroom, closed door deals, not talking to this community. The only time the community had a dialogue was when we decided to push it out there.
Yes.
That's not what we want to encourage developers in Jamaica Plain to do. And if this was before the zoning committee with David, and everybody else in here in the zoning committee, we would be saying, go back to the neighborhood and talk to them, do a deferral, because if it goes forward, we're denying it. We can't do that here. This process is not going to stop, it's going to continue. Now, if we say we don't want to take a position, we're saying Whole Foods convinced us that you should be in our neighborhood. We say no, Whole Foods, you really got to convince us that you belong in this neighborhood.
At bottom, well, there will be benefits, there would be benefits to a Whole Foods, no doubt. I think at bottom, this issue really is about gentrification in the neighborhood. And I understand that gentrification has been taking place in JP for a long time. I know that. 30 years. But just because it's been happening, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be resisting it, and we have to let it happen and let it happen at a faster pace. And I do believe that will happen if Whole Foods comes to Hyde Square. So I'm not sure. I mean, I appreciate the arguments about maintaining some sort of leverage with Whole Foods around a community benefits agreement, but as of this moment, for myself, in terms of the gentrification, I'm not sure what a community benefits agreement would look like that would answer my concern about that.
I recognize the argument about like waiting to have more leverage later, but I feel like this is our moment to have leverage. This is when the issue is in the news. This is when people are mobilized. This is when we can respond to them. I want to make a couple just substantive points. A lot of people have talked about my problem with the focusing on the community benefits is that again, this is not a local corporation. If they pledged $1 million a year to Jamaica Plain, they're going to be taking way more out of that in profits than going to be just going somewhere else. I'm not against them making profits, but I'm just saying to be completely giving them the benefit of the doubt, for every $1 million they gave Jamaica Plain, probably 10 or $20 million would be drawn out of Jamaica Plain, Rosedale, all the other places where people are going to come to shop here. It's not going to be an equal transaction. And then there's the gentrification. I feel like people said, well, gentrification, the horse has already left the barn. But the fact is that Whole Foods is coming in here is just going to accelerate all the trends that in all the discussions we have, whether it's, again, like about people doing weird things with their driveways or Forest Hills or Jackson Square, everything that we've done, has been to try to carefully weigh things and do what we can to preserve the character of Jamaica Plain, the vibrant Latino community of Jamaica Plain, and Whole Foods is definitely going to run counter to that. If they create jobs, again, they're going to suck jobs away from other small businesses. I don't have confidence there will be a net gain in jobs in Jamaica Plain when they're coming in here. I feel it's just as likely there would be a net loss of jobs from lots of small stores going out of business. And then the last thing I want to say is about the traffic issue. I have to say, somebody was talking about, or Red was talking about how in the Hyde Square, which is most proximate to the sentiment, seems pretty clear. In my neighborhood, Monument, most of my neighbors seem like sheepishly or actively in favor of having Whole Foods. And I think about how just 2 months ago, when Andrea knows, because she was there, we had all these community meetings about the traffic situation and the changes, the monument plan, the Center South Monument Plan. And all my neighbors were, so upset about increased traffic just in our little section of things, and the bus routes, just endless discussion. But somehow, like over in Hyde Square, we have, traffic, congestion. To me, one of the things that we would definitely want them to say is that they can only have that parking lot and they have to convert half of it into a park, so there would be less parking. And bike sheds, and all that, so they would really be focused on serving Jamaica Plain. So I feel like based on what we know now, it seems to me that it is going to be negative for Jamaica Plain and for Hyde Square, and that we should act while it can have an effect.
Next, there is a concern that David just mentioned about Hyde Square having another empty storefront. I would start by reminding the council that a major factor in Hyde Square has been the inept and overzealous handling of property by landlords. When these new businesses close their doors and relocate, likely due to substantial rent increases. When combined with economic recovery slowly gaining steam, Hyde Square should not be empty for long, in my opinion, due to the economy. Perhaps the council should also express concern and disappointment with the handling of other Hyde Square vacancies, not due to the economy. Even if Whole Foods were to be stopped or choose to leave, it would send a strong signal to the landlords in Jamaica Plain. The residents do care about the neighborhood and deserve to be heard on these issues.
As a council, we all know we put in a lot of time and effort to hold this two community forums. And I really respect the people who organized themselves and went out of their way to come and speak at those forums. And I want to respect their time and their efforts too. And I heard very loud and clearly from folks, not that they want to have a good, strong community benefits agreement. I heard they don't want it. I too am concerned about an empty storefront, but I have faith in this community. I have faith that it's a desirable community. I don't think Whole Foods is coming here because they want to do charity. I think that as a community we need to say what we're about and make sure that the businesses that come are good neighbors, and I have seen absolutely no evidence that
I too feel strongly ambivalent about this. I feel very strongly on both sides. I appreciate, you know, like Dave, I live in Area A. I live mere blocks away from the property in question. I, you know, walk by on my way to the library at least once a week. I walk by Hilo. Yeah, my librarian's here. I walk by Hilo. I walk by the empty Milky Way. I walk by the empty June Bud. You know, I myself own a single-family house right off of Day Street. So as a property owner, I'm concerned about the Whole Food effect in both directions, right? I understand that the landlord for the Milky Way is holding out for a higher rent, you know, and will reap the benefits of Whole Foods coming into the neighborhood because probably someone will pay that higher rent. You know, it's such a difficult and complex issue that I cannot say that I am convinced that Whole Foods is not a good fit for Hyde Square. You know,
I am not happy about Whole Foods. When I first heard about it, I was extremely anti it. I did not want Whole Foods. And I think over time, I've started to realize that we are hearing, obviously, strongly from a portion of the community that does not want it, but there are a whole host of other people that are feeling a little bit more like, you know, they're unsure. And I feel like it is our job as a council to engage in that dialogue, and we have not engaged in that